Welcome to Design Your Life in Business, the podcast for leaders by BrightMind Consulting Group. We give you the necessary tools to help you become the architect of not just your business, but your life too. I'm your host, Jevon Wooden. Hey, Dr. Pavlou, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me here. It was a pleasure to see you.
Absolutely. A pleasure is all mine. So we have a very special guest. Dr. Pavlou is actually the UH Dean. So I'm in the cohort for the inaugural DBA, Doctorate in Business Administration program. And I noticed how amazing he is and how accomplished he is. So I had to bring him on. I'm so grateful that he said yes to being a guest on Design Your Life in Business. And Dr. Pavlou, we're going to hop right in. Do you mind if I just call you Paul for the sake of the show?
Yes, absolutely. Jevon, please feel free to call me Paul. Thanks for your kind words. And I'm glad that you're enjoying our executive DBA program and being on the very first cohort. And I'm hearing some very positive words from your entire cohort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And nothing but positivity. So we're going to talk about you today. You are an accomplished researcher, academic, and dean of course, a top performing university in University of Houston. What motivated you to pursue a career in academia?
It's a long story. I've always been passionate about knowledge, about learning from, of course, very early on in my K through 12. I was always passionate about education. And of course, the more I grew in life, I could see the enormous potential that education, I would say also higher education, can have on people. Personally, I come from a tiny island on the Mediterranean. It's called Cyprus, not Cyprus, Texas, Cyprus, the country. And sometimes you have to have like a magnifying glass to see it on a world map. And my life was transformed by higher education. I was fortunate to get a scholarship, starting with a Fulbright scholarship to come from the island of Cyprus to the US to study. And then throughout my master, doctoral work, I was fortunate to have scholarships to support my education. And everything I have achieved in life is because of higher education, some great universities and faculty who have been tremendously helpful in advancing my knowledge and ultimately my career, whether it's in research, whether it's in earlier on in engineering. That was my first 2 degrees. Everything really contributed to helping me start from very modest means to be here and being fortunate to serve as dean of a major business school in the United States.
Thank you for sharing that. So, I was so excited to interview you that I didn't even ask the question that I ask every guest. And I think that it's still a great time because you mentioned modest means. So tell us, who are you? Where did you come from? What was Cyprus like? And then what led you to becoming the dean?
Cyprus is a tiny island in the Mediterranean, on the eastern most island in the Mediterranean Sea. I was born, so I can actually date myself exactly. I was born 1 year after a war in Cyprus. The island was divided into 2 parts, and many people had to, be moved away from their houses. So it was a very difficult time for the island. And of course, I grew up in, I would say, very difficult situations. Actually, my claim to fame, not so positive, is that my first almost 6 years of life, I lived in outside of Cyprus in different countries in the Middle East, in Africa, where my parents had to work because there are not, jobs on the island. So it was pretty, I would say, challenging but exciting to some degree upbringing, especially my first few years. So which actually, in retrospect, in many very comfortable with ambiguity, with being more flexible. Very being comfortable moving around and I'm dealing with uncertainty and ambiguity. So that was definitely something that really transformed me in the very early stage of my life. Later on, kind of all of my school has took place in the island of Cyprus. So I was fortunate to have actually, for the conditions, a pretty strong educational system, a lot of emphasis on education that actually instilled my passion for education. So I was actually a pretty good student overall. Of course, my passion was basketball, so my goal was to play in the NBA. Actually, part of the reason of coming to the United States was to play in college and with a goal to become an NBA player. Well, kind of for whatever reason, I realized very quickly I would not make it into the NBA, which I'm pretty fortunate that it's a very tough career to be a professional basketball player. So, and that's why academics and the different universities I mentioned earlier, really carried me. And whatever I have become is because of some robust education that I have received.
Absolutely. Well, wow. I mean, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, like I see Paul all the time, and you would never know that he's gone through all of that because his disposition, actually, absolutely, no matter how your day is going, if you're having a bad day, you see him instantly, your day becomes better. I will tell you that from personal experience. And I can see that, that adversity really has sharpened you in a way. You can enter any room and it feels like you've known you for forever, right? And when I first met you, it felt like I had just introduced myself and you just made me feel so comfortable, so welcome. And you did that to each and every person in that room. And that's one of the things that really spoke to me most about your character. So I really appreciate you sharing that story, and that resonates with me deeply because I myself had went through a lot of adversity getting to this point. So maybe that's why you just connect with me so easily, that we've both gone through something and now we've choose to leverage that into our purpose. So thank you for sharing that, Paul.
Absolutely. And one thing I'd like to say, thanks for your kind words. I really appreciate it. But definitely there is tremendous adversity and challenges, in all of our lives, both personally, professionally. And I mean, if I start complaining about things, I could take hours to complain about all the challenges what we're facing. But ultimately, it's not about complaining. Yes, there are many challenges in everything we do, but ultimately, when you interact with people, like in your case with some of our best students, and of course our alumni, supporters, students, faculty, staff. I mean, you want to be a force of good, of positivity. I'm an optimist by nature. No matter what's happening, I want to see the positive side of things. And yes, I'd like to smile. I like to connect with people. I really like to engage in different ways with our different constituents. So that comes very naturally to me. So despite everything that's going on, that is not always positive, I always try to be as positive as possible.
Absolutely. You do that very well. And you also have this the essence of curiosity about you, even speaking to people, and it shows in your research because it spans several different disciplines. You've had information systems research, marketing strategy, operations, decision sciences, and AI. So, is there a common theme between them all, or did you just say, "Hey, that's interesting, that's cool, that's cool"?
Well, that too, the cool, and cool. Yeah, that's a nice description. But well, I would say that I mean the common theme, at least from I would say at the more serious fundamental level, is more the notion of data science and using data empirics to really understand complex phenomena. And the other common thing, which I'm very, very passionate about, is a notion of interdisciplinarity and what I call as transdisciplinarity. So not just to understand relationships across disciplines, but also interweaving them closely. So if you see all of my research, even if you can actually nicely put them in traditional disciplinary silos in terms of publications and journals. But if you look at the entire theme, is how technology changes business. I always try to see what are the exciting, novel, leading edge phenomena. So whether in the early stages of the internet, how to understand what makes markets work, whether it's eBay in the early beginning or some of the early online platforms, to social media, to how new technologies transform the way we interact, the way we communicate, the way we engage in among each other, also across organizations, across individuals and companies. So basically, understanding using some fundamental methods has been my overarching, I would say, methodological strength. But always, I find the application to emerging multidisciplinary areas that really have broader practical and societal applications. So I would say my research also from a application perspective tends to be quite eclectic. Meaning that I will study, for example, like issues about the adoption of mobile technology in Africa. I will focus on challenges with transportation and how technology changes the nature of transportation. I'll focus on building trust in online markets in the very early stage of the internet. So trying to see how using different theoretical lenses from multiple disciplines, whether marketing, operations, information systems, can really inform some exciting phenomenon that really has some practical applications. And one thing I like to say is that whatever I do in my research, yes, there's a theoretical, methodological strength for sure, but basically I like to see what's valuable for organization, for society, for people. That's always my goal, to say that whatever I'm doing has some practical implications.
Absolutely, and clearly that is happening because you are quoted and so much. Your H index is out of this world. For people that don't know, that's really how you know an academic is really the stuff. I'm not going to use the other word, but the stuff in their industry, because they're constantly being quoted. And the H index, the higher it is, the more quoted they are, which means that people are referencing their works. And you have a super high H index, Paul. So you are a busy man. Let's kind of drill down a little bit into that research process, because I know a lot of listeners and myself, for selfish reasons, want to ask this question. When you approach research, is there a specific process that you go through to ensure that you're getting the most bang for your buck, and with the time spent and the resources that you leverage?
Basically, I would say the very first thing I'd like to make sure that exists in every research question that my colleagues and I tackle is that what is interesting and exciting and practically relevant. So basically, yes, you can say there is some theoretical interest and some theoretical contribution. That's all good, but I like to say that whatever I do has some practical applicability. I can talk to a lay person anywhere. I can use the example. I can talk to my grandmother and explain to her, why what I'm doing is interesting and relevant for her. And she's 97 years old right now. But you say it's not my goal to say I will talk only to a very narrow audience, and maybe that's why I was fortunate that my research has been, ratherly well cited. Is because I think it tries to tackle some challenging, relevant problems and the goal is to make some practical, relevant impact for whether it's organizations, for managers, whether it's practically even for public policy, or more broadly for society. I'd like to see, what's the overall implication, the broader impact of this work. Obviously, on a practical sense, besides having an exciting research question and tackling an exciting issue, it's actually more like, is it feasible? And I work a lot with doctoral students, and sometimes I tell people, well, a complete dissertation is better than an incomplete dissertation, and don't try to spend too much time finding something that cannot be done, it's not feasible. Either you don't have the data, or it's such a big problem that cannot be tackled within a reasonable time frame. So basically, yes, at some point, yes, you want to tackle and solve the world's biggest challenges, but at some point you need to make sure that whatever you're doing is feasible. And of course, depending on your nature of your study, do you have the data, whatever you need to actually get this done. So basically, there will be the two primary issues. Do I have a really exciting, relevant, practical problem? And can it be done? I think it's a very important aspect. And of course, sometimes projects take several years to complete. So things kind of change, and your ideas and the questions might change. Also, data, you can collect data, you can create new data, find secondary data sources. So always it's an evolving exercise as well. The feasibility, the quality, the rigor of the study, but always these will be like the two major determinants. Meaning that always I strive to say doing something that has broader, exciting implications. And of course, I wanted to get done. It's always the issue that let's get it done. And so I think the two things together, the big picture, the specific, like the practical aspect, combined together, hopefully result some good completed research studies.
Absolutely. And I know the business people out here are saying, okay, that's cool in academics, but I want to take a moment to make sure they understand how it can be applied in business. Because in academia, I'm sure they're saying, "Oh, academics, y'all can take years," but in business, I think we need to learn from that, right? Making sure that we're not just looking to do something to try to solve world issues, but iterating, right? And Apple did a great job with that when they first came out with the iPhone. Not saying, hey, this is perfect, but what's the minimal viable product? So we can always continue our research and then continue to look to make it better or dispel what we put out previously to say, okay, that theory was good. Our hypothesis was right technically, but how can we reverse that, or how can we expound on it a little bit, make it better a little bit, etc. So I think that we can apply that same thought, right? What's interesting, but also what's feasible right now. And we see that in technology all the time, right? Where, chipsets, now we have greater chips. So AI is taking off, right? It was already thought of and it was already in play, but it didn't have the capacity because the hardware wasn't there. So with mentioning technology, that brings me to another question is, how do you believe that the technological advancements are going to impact the future of academia?
Let me talk about more broadly, because I think technology, artificial intelligence, everything that we see in front of us will actually change the world in general, the nature of work quite a bit. So basically, we see a lot of increased automation of many professions. Entirely, some professions are being completely automated, or at least many of the key functions being completed by machines, technology, whether it's robotics, artificial intelligence, including increasingly more advanced cognitive work. It used to be more like manual labor that was actually being automated in factories, in agriculture. Now we see increasingly more cognitive work, being replaced. So I would say overall, professions work is changing, and actually it will change increasingly faster and faster, because as you mentioned, with more advanced technologies, faster chips in terms of hardware, a lot of availability of data, ability to optimize decisions and say, can we automate them using machine, using advanced computation, we can make decisions much faster. One example that has been kind of only a few years old is the whole idea of writing. Basically, now with generative AI, we can write better than most of us within a few seconds. If you look at like ChatGPT and other technologies, you can actually see that you say, write me a 2,000 word essay on a certain topic, and within a few seconds, you get something that it will probably take the average human being probably 8 hours to put together in terms of the research, in terms of the writing. And you get something that may not be perfect. It can still be improved, but it actually is good in terms of what you get. So, and I think that's still at its infancy. So we can see that many of those traditionally human aspects, writing, even creativity, innovation, can be done by machines. So, yeah, a lot of professions will change, and increasingly many of the routine tasks we do, or some of the cognitive tasks we do, can be automated, or at least for those of us who know how to use technology effectively, we can do things much more efficiently, much better. And that combination of human and machine can be quite powerful. I mean, in my work, I call it augmented intelligence. And I think there is so much power in augmenting our limited human intelligence, and with what machines, computation, AI can do. So to your question, in academia, I think academia will also change. I would say in two key ways. Obviously, many of the tasks we do, the writing aspects, some of the cognitive work, can be automated. So even if, let's say, many of the jobs will still remain, uh, they will become more efficient, they will change, and we may need the fewer people to actually do the same amount of work. So that will be an interesting evolution of academia. Also, we see a lot of innovation in teaching itself. So basically, yes, I mean, the traditional teaching, will remain, that we need instructors who are knowledgeable about the topic, but there's so much efficiency that we can actually see from that. And also there is potential for personalizing learning and education. And I think using AI, using ways we can understand, what Jevon needs to do in learn in terms of this class, and allow you to have more customized exercise or additional materials if you don't understand a certain topic, but you understood something much faster. So basically, I think there is so much potential for making learning more effective, more efficient, more personalized. And I think we're kind of still scratching the surface of what is possible. And I kind of joke where I say, well, we have this mode of instruction that is the professor, faculty teaches a class of 30, 300, 3,000 people in front of him or her. Uh, and we kind of perfected that model. But in terms of like how we personalize using technology, and whether it's a face-to-face mode, synchronous, asynchronous, live streaming, or any other combination, the ability to actually personalize the experience is where we see some leaps and bounds in terms of the potential for education.
Yeah, and that's key, the personalization aspect. And one of the things that is a hot topic right now, we're seeing people, getting pretty much being accused of plagiarism. So I'm wondering what your perspective and standpoint is on leveraging using augmented intelligence to write a paper, for instance, or a dissertation. What's the view on that right now?
In terms of if there is some technology that can help you do your work better, I think you should use it. That's a very simple argument. As long as it can be done ethically and appropriately, when there is a technology that allows you to do things better, you should use it. And I give a very simple example. If you have a car or walking, use the car effectively and efficiently. Don't try to go 50 miles walking. Or if you have a plane, take the plane as opposed to try to take a bicycle. So yes, if you have a technology that allows you to do things faster, your research in terms of what the generative AI can do, or these AI generated searches, or even writing or presentation, and can provide you like the basics in terms of a generic view of what you want to write. I mean, you can actually use it. And then basically the how your ultimate outcome, the person is responsible for. So let's say you ask me to do something and I can use technology, whatever ultimately I give to you as a person, as Paul, I'm responsible for that. So yes, I'm not supposed to plagiarize. So basically I should use whatever I have, similar to how I use a dictionary to do research, or the encyclopedias to do research, or using search engines to do my research online, or reading papers from any other sources, magazines, journals, and so forth. The final product needs to be mine and should not be plagiarized. So it should be my own original work. I can use whatever universe of technologies and tools and resources, but the ultimate product is mine, and I'm ultimately responsible for whatever I produced. So ultimately, and the same applies whether it was 100 years ago, using encyclopedias and try to read and write in using handwriting. Even now that a machine can write a pretty nice, document about almost everything, but ultimately the final product should belong to the individual. And on that aspect, let me just talk about like the ethics of AI. I mean, ultimately, whoever owns the AI, the technology, you are responsible for the product that you have to whoever it is. And you cannot say, oh, the technology came up with that. Well, that's not a good excuse. Basically, whatever you produce, your assignment, your dissertation, your journal submission, everything should reflect your own original work, and you are responsible for whatever you produce, no matter how you actually develop that.
I love it. Yes, thank you for that clarification. Because I know a lot of people are, it's we don't know, right? So I just wanted to get that out there to the world to understand that, AI is not 100%. Even ChatGPT says, hey, we do make mistakes, right? So you definitely still need to do your research and know what you're talking about. So because I know a lot of people are saying like the thought leadership space is going down because everyone can be a thought leader now because ChatGPT. But there's so much that goes into it, and you're just putting out stuff that you had spit out. Typically, a lot of us can tell when it's chat gpt because it starts like in a world where, or the business world, it just sounds, if you haven't tested it, it sounds like chat gpt. So thanks for sharing that, Paul. A couple more questions before we get to our design round or design segment. So the first question would be, a lot of us, in the business world, we see the academic world as a kind of like an abyss. We don't really know what's in there, right? So how do you as a dean build that collaborative environment that we all seek in the business side?
Whichever industry you are, whether in our case higher education, on energy or healthcare, if you look from the outside, people think that it's an abyss and they don't know exactly what's happening. So basically, universities have the same aspects similar to most industries. So I would start with that kind of baseline. However, at least in a business school, being a professional school, and especially my thought is actually that ultimately, our job as academics, whether it's research, whether it's education, and the degrees that we produce for our students, is actually to help them do their jobs better, get at least for undergraduate their first internship, their first job, whether it's an MBA, master degree, to help students advance into their careers, even on the way to an executive doctor that allows them to get to the next stage, think more strategically, think more creatively. So in everything between, basically we need to, have an impact on organizations and society. And I strongly believe in that intersection of research that allows you to create new knowledge and the practical applicability of that research, of that knowledge. So that's why we strive very much in the Bauer College to have this very strong connection with practice. So whether it's in the energy sector, in healthcare, in technology, in finance, you name it, in everything, we try our very best to have this strong connection. So our research tends to be very practical and relevant to the world of practice. And the same thing, we try to learn what is needed, what is relevant from industry. So our curricula, our programs, our degrees really cater to that. So that combination of the two is very powerful, in my opinion. It's not easy to do, but basically really strive to have this strong connectivity. I mean, at the Bauer College of Business, we have the Office of Experiential Learning that basically we engage very actively with companies, with projects, internships, research opportunities for undergraduates, master students, doctoral students, to work closely with industry, understanding real life problems, real life challenges, and see how we can work together to address them, to tackle them, to resolve them. So I think that the combination of research at different levels, from the high level, doctoral level, to undergraduate research, but also the combination and application to practice, is what allows us to have a competitive advantage, in my opinion, because basically it's not just wearing the ivory tower, doing your own thing and trying to publish in traditional journals, but everything that we do and still try to publish really caters to what industry and what society do need.
And that's one of the things that caused me to select the DBA program was it's an intersection, right? A lot of people in business say, the academics are, we just think that you're in there just by yourself doing some research, typing these papers that we don't understand, right? But it's really, that's what makes so special to me, is that practice and academic side. The professors, a lot of them come from the industries. A lot of them have been consulting in the industry, so it's just a different feel, and you can tell that that's there. And with that being said, there's no better expert for me to ask this of. Are there particular skills or qualities that you believe are critical for success as we move into this different age with AI and all these different technologies coming about?
Let me start with kind of some kind of more futuristic view of things. I think ultimately, and I don't know exactly, ultimately it's 50 or 100 years, but ultimately whatever we do as human beings can be done by machines. more efficiently, more effectively. So, but ultimately that would be the case. But I think in the foreseeable future, it's about what this notion of augmented intelligence. So basically, using technology intelligently to complement and supplement and enhance our own intelligence. And where we, I think we still have some advantage as compared to what AI or machines can do is actually the creativity, the ability to have critical thinking, the ability to have empathy, the ability to communicate and understand and have difficult conversations. Sometimes in business we can talk about leadership because it's about like dealing with people, managing people, leading initiatives that cannot be done by machines yet. So I think the notion of what we call broadly as soft skills, they're quite important, and increasingly they will become more and more important. So going back even 20, 30 years, it was more about functional skills. You have the hard skills, and I'm an engineer by training. It was all about hard skills. Can you do engineering? And that's the most important aspect. I think increasingly many of the functional skills can be automated or be done very efficiently with minimal supervision by humans. So those will become increasingly less important. So, but the ability to communicate, the ability to exercise judgment, the ability to use critical thinking is actually what will differentiate successful people, successful employees, successful leaders versus those whose jobs can be automated to a large extent. So that critical thinking is what we try to instill very heavily into all of our curricula, creating well-rounded individuals who can communicate, we can lead, we can manage complex teams, have difficult conversations, have the ability to work with under different situations with people. I think that would be a very increasingly important skill that would differentiate successful leaders from less successful ones.
Absolutely. Well said, Paul. That, yes, I couldn't. Thank you. I don't even need to say anything else. So we're going to move to the by design segment. You said that beautifully. So, first question is, what has been the hardest part about designing a life and business you don't need a vacation from?
People joke that I don't take vacation, and that's kind of largely true. Of course, I mean, I take some days at least to travel with family and friends. So, but I manage to wherever I am, and I've been to the most exotic destinations on earth. And as long as I have internet connectivity, I'm always on and try to be on top of my job responsibilities. So at least things can move along. So but I really enjoy what I'm doing because I think we have a strong impact on students' lives, on more broadly on organizations. We have a positive effect on society. So what we do, whether it's developing new programs, working with students, resolving challenges with faculty and staff, fundraising is something that I enjoy because I think it has a positive impact on all of our constituents. So I think, another tradition is like if you love what you're doing, is you never have to work for a living. That's probably quite true because I really enjoy what I'm doing. So I'm not doing it because it pays to do that, but because I really enjoy to have an impact. So I don't need to take a vacation to get away from work because I really take my work to vacation. And that combination energizes me and allows me to still do what I love to do and still spend some time with family and friends.
I love that. That's what I'm talking about. Number two is, what is the best lesson you've learned from your journey?
Two things I would say. So the first thing is the ability to communicate, the ability to interact with people. I mean, you compliment on the having a positive demeanor. I really like to whatever situation you may be, just try to interact with people, engage, have a good conversation, get to know people, and ultimately, despite all the challenges, basically, it's if we work together, communicate, I think you can do great things. So always going with optimism, with positive energy, try to see how we can resolve differences, how we can find solutions. It's always something that I think is very important. Sometimes we like to kind of take our own approaches and try to always negotiate and everything, but I think take this very positive approach, like let's make the pie bigger. Let's find more solutions, more be more creative. You can resolve a lot of let's call it traditional challenges. So that brings me to the second part, which I think is important of soft skills, communication is actually very important. If I go back 20 years or even more, I would say that you focus a lot on your hard skills and you think those will carry you forward for the rest of your life, but it's not quite true. Basically, if you want to be successful, if you want to have a leadership position, you need to communicate, spend time with people, understand them, exhibit empathy in everything that you do. So those aspects are extremely important. So, and I tell students, even if you're undergraduate starting at 18, starting college, work on your leadership skills. And people say, well, I'm not going to be a CEO, in my next job. I say, it doesn't matter. It's like more like how you communicate, how you interact with people, how you be able to be part of a team, how you lead even a small team. So all those things are very important, and it will become, as I mentioned, because of technology, increasingly more important.
Yes, and I love that point about it doesn't matter, because I always tell people, like, we're really all leaders, right? And a lot of people think a leader, has to run an organization or a country, but it's really about influencing, inspiring, and guiding. So someone's watching you. You never know who. It's not about being a key decision maker all the time. So I love that you said that. And I got to give you another compliment. Like I said, I've seen you in action, and I talk a lot about empathetic leadership, and you are the embodiment of that. So I really appreciate the way you go about handling business and really communicating with your people and making everyone feel very welcome around you. So kudos to you on that.
One thing I tell people, it's actually quite specific. I mean, definitely, yeah, you have a certain authority, your position has certain authority. And I tell people, if you don't need to use your authority to convince people to get things done, that's the best thing you can do. People follow you not because they have to, because you are their supervisor, or because if you say so, they have to do it, but because they really believe in you, that they really had a convincing argument. And I think that's a way. So I think the less you use your authority and your position to get things done, the better you will be. And if you can inspire, empower people and say that because use convincing arguments, not because you are the boss or whether you're their supervisor, but because you made some strong, compelling, inspiring arguments to convince them, I think that will carry you much farther. I think inspiring people, getting the best out of them, and really empowering them to do things, it's definitely very important. So I tell people that even if the idea is not great, I let people run with their ideas because they're passionate about them. They are much more likely to succeed, as opposed to telling them, no, this is my idea and go ahead and do it. I mean, people will not be as energized and excited to do your idea. So even if their idea theoretically might not be as good, which in my case is usually better, their ideas is usually better, but I let run with their ideas. They're usually better than mine, and if they're passionate about them, they will do a great job. So I'd rather have people who are really pursuing their passion, their ideas, than rely on my authority to promote my own ideas. So anyway, that's kind of my always thinking that when I talk to people, it's always about, I'm not telling you what to do, but kind of empowering you, inspiring you, energizing you to get the things that you think would be great.
Absolutely. And that's how innovation takes place, allowing them to run with their ideas. You'd be surprised what happens. So the last question is, what are three tools or tips that you would recommend?
Uh, Jevon, when you say tools, you mean like technology tools, or you mean like in terms of?
It could be anything. It could be life tools to have a better life. It could be technology, whatever you feel like giving, tips, tools, whichever one you recommend.
I would say that in terms of maybe not tools, but I say leadership skills are very important. So whether it's like even going online and getting some basic leadership things that you need to do, or at least sign up on some leadership course, whether it's very early on, if it's an undergraduate student, or all the way to being an executive, continuously enhancing your leadership skills are very important. I think that would be, if there was one advice I would give, even not 18-year-olds, but even my 10-year-old daughter, is exercise your leadership skills. I have this thing that drives me crazy when people say, "Oh, you are born a leader, and you need to have this oratory skills and amazing voice to be a successful leader." Yes, it might help, and I wish I had this amazing voice. But it's more about dealing with people and being empathetic and exercising your skills. And even our voice, the way we speak, can become better if you practice, if you work hard at that. So understanding your broad leadership skills, whether it's communication skill, presentation skill, public speaking, those are very important. And I think that would become, stay, and remain important. So that aspect, do whatever you want. And most of them, you're not born with them. You can improve upon whatever you have, and you can become a better leader. Second is actually, I will not mention any particular technology, but what I mentioned, this notion of augmented intelligence or using technology effectively, whatever that may be, and whether it's social media to communicate better, or whether using a chat GPT we discussed to write better, or at least use some basic tools to do your research, or at least to get some initial generic document, that would be very useful. So try to always be on top of the latest technologies and make sure that you don't stay behind. And of course, it's not easy because technology changes and you need to always improve upon your skills. But we have courses on AI, what are the fundamentals of AI. You don't need to be designing the next generation tools, but know how to use them. Use them effectively, even on the chat GPT. Don't plagiarize. Use it to write better, to enhance, or even do a plagiarism check so you don't, even if you write something that was copied by somebody inadvertently, at least the machine would tell you, okay, be careful. This seems to be, copied or similar to something else. Or your grammar, your presentation. So use technology very effectively. That's a very important aspect. And then the last thing I would say is more like a skill. Always try to be creative and innovative. I think in terms of basic kind of, I would say, operational skills, ultimately they can be automated and by technology, but trying to be creative, innovative, and it cannot be that you have to do something from scratch every single time, but somebody else did something innovative in a different context. Learn about it, be curious, always try to be out there, having your antennas up to see what's going on and see if it applies to your context. So always the creativity, innovation is something that is easier said than done, but always think about how can I do things differently? How can I do things better? How can I innovate? How can I experiment? I think that allows you to get to the next level. So that skill of some people may call it entrepreneurial skill, broadly defined, doesn't have to be starting a new business, but doing things differently, innovating in whether it's a process, whether it's a curriculum in when you teach something, whether it's anything in your job. I think having that mindset, how can I innovate today? I think that's a very important skill mindset, and if you exercise it frequently, you can become better at it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think innovation, a lot of people think of using that in a professional sense, but it's really used for life, right? That's a life skill to be able to innovate and just make things easier or better in some way, shape, or form. Man, Dr. Paul Pavlou, everyone, it has been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate you, and I'm sure the listeners appreciate it. How can everyone connect with you?
I have both my email addresses. I have my cell phone. Call me, text me, email me any hour of the day. I try to resolve any issues. So yes, happy to connect with anybody. And if there are any issues that I can help with, whether Jevon personally as a student or anybody who can actually can provide any help. Always I try to be accessible, and I do my very best to respond within 24 hours in any email, any request. I think it's very important to be connected to your constituent, whether it's students, faculty, staff, alumni. I think having that accessibility is very important.
Wow, I appreciate that and appreciate it. It's not my fault if you get a bunch of calls or texts, Dr. Pablo, but we appreciate you.
I think if you give your phone number, people actually take it more seriously. Say, okay, if he's willing to give his phone number, let me use it for some serious reason. So, I mean, if someone wants to give me like send me a fun text. I'll take it. I mean, there's so many things happening there, but if it's something that somebody wants to text you at 3 o'clock in the morning, I hope it's serious, and I'll do my very best to respond.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you. I know you have to run, but it's been an honor. Thank you so much for being a guest on Design Your Life and Business podcast. And remember, listeners, to keep ascending. Design Your Life and Business, the podcast for leaders, is brought to you by BrightMind Consulting Group. To find out more about BrightMind Consulting Group and how you can become the best leader possible, visit brightmindconsultinggroup.com. Make sure you search for Design Your Life and Business on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at BrightMind Consulting Group, we cannot thank you enough for listening.